Welcome to the real life show, Living with a Chronic Illness. We are your hosts, Cassie and Chelsea. I'm Cassie, a single mom living with a chronic illness who is extremely passionate about living a full and happy life.
And I'm Chelsea. I have a passion for helping people to put themselves first and to be the best version of themselves each and every day.
We came together to create the Spoonies Hub, an uplifting community that offers resources, guidance, support, and offers you the space to be yourself, be heard, and feel understood. We hope that by providing tips and tricks from experts, we help people with chronic conditions to thrive and live the lives they've dreamed of.
This show is not only for those who live with a chronic illness or disability, but their friends, family, spouses, and just anyone else existing on the earth. Our goal is to normalize having a chronic condition by sharing real stories with real people and to show the world how relatable those everyday struggles can be. There's a little something in here for everyone.
And a special shout out to our community at the Spoonies Hub. Thanks to your contributions, we are able to provide flexible work opportunities for Spoonies, donate to our nonprofit to help provide wellness treatments for those who need it, and be able to transcribe our podcast to make it more accessible for all. To learn more, visit our show notes.
Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Real Life Show, Living with a Chronic Illness. Cassie and I have a very special guest with us today. She is the woman that keeps the Spoonies Hub running. Without her, it would have fallen apart by now with just me and Cassie running it. We have Jackie Coffin with us today. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I can't believe we haven't done this sooner, to be completely honest.
I'm excited.
We're so happy to have you on. It's going to be so much fun. Everyone listening, if you're on the Spoonies Hub or want to join the Spoonies Hub, Jackie organizes it all for us, make sure everything gets done. And she has amazing brain when it comes to marketing, which we'll talk a little bit more about kind of her experience with that. But she's awesome. And we're so excited to have you. So Jackie, the question that all guests get, can you please tell our listeners about who you are, your story, and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, so my name is Jackie Coffin. I was diagnosed, I think it was about 10 years ago now. And I have Sjogren's, fibromyalgia, and small fiber neuropathy. I've been doing theater pretty much my whole life, and I was choreographing a particular show. And one morning I woke up to get ready for rehearsal, and I fell out of bed because I could not feel my lower half. So my entire legs and feet were just numb, and I had no idea what was happening. I couldn't move. I was living with my mom at the time, and I was like, Mom, I don't know what's happening. Please, what the hell? And so that led to, going to see a neurologist and just trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And it took, I'm going to say 3 years maybe to get an actual diagnosis. But it did get pretty serious pretty fast because I couldn't walk. And I was in so much pain all the time. So I did go down to some specialty hospitals down in Boston. I saw the first rheumatologist. She said, okay, you have Sjogren's, but there's nothing I can do for you. And I was like, what? I don't understand. What do you mean there's nothing you can do? So I was like, okay, this is not going to work. So that's when I, sought out kind of a more specialty, some doctors out of Boston that did specialize in Sjogren's. Because I never heard of it, didn't know what it was. It's an autoimmune condition that causes inflammation, affects your joints, and it can cause all different complications. So I did get a positive diagnosis for that. And
what do they do to test for that?
So
for your diagnosis?
They have blood tests. So I had, they have a blood test called an ANA, and I can't remember the other one, but I had a positive ANA, I think. I hope I'm saying that right. I can't remember. And there's two ANA, no, SSB. I don't know. I'm sorry. Can't remember. But so there's blood tests. And then there's also actually, because Sjogren's affects your glands, so it dries everything out. So you get really dry skin. The hallmark symptoms are dry eye and dry mouth. and a lot of people are like, oh, Sjogren's is just dry eyes and dry mouth, and like, put some, eye drops in, some specialty eye drops, and, take a pill for more saliva and you're fine. But when it gets more serious, it can really, that's when it starts to affect your joints and the inflammation. So it was definitely becoming more than just for me, like dry eyes and dry mouth. And there's a test called a lip biopsy where they actually take a little piece of your lip right here, and they pull out the nerves or something, and then they test it, and that tells them if you have it. But I had already been diagnosed, and the doctors that I had seen said, we're very confident you have it. We don't think you need the lip biopsy. So it's kind of one of those things that, like, even if you have a negative, it doesn't mean you don't have Sjogren's. And like if you have a positive, you pretty much have it. But it's just there's no set tests. So like you'd get the blood test, you show that you have inflammation and you have an autoimmune condition. And that's kind of it. There's not like I know with like Lyme disease, there's like a specific test and things like that. So there's not, it's pretty complicated to diagnose. So I actually, the first like specialty doctor I saw down in Boston, we tried some medications, nothing was helping. I'm also very sensitive to medications, so I get a lot of side effects, a lot of like random, they're like, oh, this is, 1 in a million that you would get it. And I always end up with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it, I don't want to say that he was getting frustrated, but he kind of was. And this is a pattern that I've seen. It was like the first doctor I saw that was like, you have Sjogren's, but I can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it is a pattern, unfortunately, in the chronic illness community where doctors just kind of give up. And so for me, it's like finding the doctors that actually give a shit and, want to help you. So
and I would think that if you're a doctor, yes, I could understand why it would be frustrated if you're using all of your knowledge to help someone and it's not working. But if it's that frustrating for a doctor, then I could only imagine how frustrating it would be for you as a patient. And I wish that more doctors would maybe think of it less about themselves and what it means that how frustrated they are because they can't figure it out, and think about like, okay, well, if I'm this frustrated, how do you feel?
Exactly. And it's like, I'm just trying to get some help. I'm not, I'm not trying to ruin your career or like piss you off. And they just, I've just had so many doctors give up, and it's so discouraging. And so I switched to a different doctor after the first one was like, I don't know. And the doctor I went to specifically specialized in Sjogren's. Like that was his whole job. So we tried some things. I had actually the medication that's worked the best for me in my life was an infusion, and I had to go in once a month for, what was it? I think 2 days. And it was like a 5 or 6 hour infusion. And it worked so well. But the second time I went, I kind of like they have a nurse there, I felt like they give you Benadryl, they give you steroids to, but I started feeling like some like itchiness in my throat and kind of like and she was like, oh, we'll give you some more Benadryl, and it was okay. And then the third time I went, my throat completely closed up, and they had to like run in with an EpiPen and get me in the ER. And like,
oh my gosh, that is like that was like one of my biggest fears when I was going in for infusions. That was like legit one of my biggest fears, is like having an allergic reaction in there for the infusions like that.
It was terrifying. And like, it was a tiny little room. There's the nurses there. And then my dad was with me because he would drive me down to Boston. And he like just looked up, he was reading, I think. And he looked up and he was like, are you okay? Cause he could like see the color draining from my face. And I was like, mm-mm. And then I like couldn't talk. And like, so that was terrifying. And unfortunately,
that's scary.
The medication that worked the best out of my whole life so far. And it's like, I can't have it, obviously. So then I think we tried maybe one other thing, and then same thing. He was just like, I don't know what else to do for you. And I'm like, you are specialized in Sjogren's and you don't know what else to do for me.
Oh my gosh.
So thankfully I do have a rheumatologist now who is wonderful, closer to home. And he just does not give up. He just like, every time I have, we've still, yet to find the right combination for the joint pain and all that. But he just, every time I have a complication, he's just like, let's try this, let's, do this. And then I also I've been seeing him for, I think it's like 15 years now. My neurologist is just like one of those people who would never ever give up on a patient. He always has ideas. He always is like there for me. He'll like make special arrangements if I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm having issues, and he'll be like, okay, come in. So the doctors are out there. It just, takes some time. And the neurologist was the one who actually diagnosed me with the small fiber neuropathy, which is kind of where it all started with the legs. And so his theory is that the Sjogren's caused it. And it's kind of similar to like diabetic neuropathy in the feet, but it affects the nerve endings as opposed to the nerves themselves. And so my feet, the best way to describe it, my feet always feel like pins and needles. And like if your foot falls asleep and then, when you like smack it and you get that feeling, that's how my feet feel all the time.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable.
That is not comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine that all the time, because I know when like my foot falls asleep, I'm like, okay, it's uncomfortable, but it'll go away. And like within 5 minutes, I'll be back to normal. So feeling that all the time.
I know. And then that
Dang,
feeling,
Jackie.
that feeling when you get like that, like you said, like it falls asleep. And then if you try to like walk on it and it feels like you're wearing platform shoes.
Yeah.
That's
how does
how it feels.
So how does like that, does it affect your walk at all?
So whenever I have a like flare up, which happens, I've been, knock on wood, it hasn't happened this early in 2020, but it's been about once a year for the past 4 or 5 years. I end up in the hospital with a bad flare up because, again, similar to what happened when I first got sick, I can't walk. So I try to like put weight and I can't do it. I usually end up like, I have a walker here at home, and so I'll use that and I'll try to like move around with that. But sometimes it just gets so bad that there's nothing, I can really do, and I can't walk, so end up in the hospital. But it's very, it's not, I'm not dying. It's not a critical illness. So a lot of the times they're like, what do we do for you?
Right. Because in a flare, what do they do?
So now they pretty much just put me on high dose steroids, which I'm on right now, they're lovely. If you know anything about steroids, there are so many side effects, and but it does help. It does calm down the inflammation. And but when I was in the hospital, they give me like an even higher dose through like an IV. They try different pain meds and things like that. And my worst flare up was 2 years ago. I was in the hospital for a week, and then I got transferred to a rehab facility because I couldn't put any weight on. I had to basically relearn how to walk and like relearn how to use my hands and stuff. So that was really tough.
Well, and then it's just, like I had no idea, that your illness affected you in that way, in the past. Cause like, we've messaged and stuff like that, but I was excited to get you on the podcast finally to hear more about you, and your journey. And I can only imagine how frustrating mentally and emotionally that's got to be when you're like, move legs one after the other, and you like can't feel them, and the pain and that pins. I mean, that is just like, this is not the same, but I get really bad restless leg syndrome at night sometimes. And I just lay in bed. To that. Oh, I hate it. And I should just be taking magnesium Naturally Calm because it really helps at night, but I always forget. But I'll be laying there in bed, just like wiggling my legs around, just wiggling them, and just being like, be asleep while I'm wiggling my legs. Just come on, brain. Like my body can be moving while I'm asleep. It'll work. And it never works. And the mental and emotional like frustration that I get, it almost feels like it's like driving me crazy. And I'll put my feet out of the blanket and then I'll move them around, and then I'll be like rubbing them, and then I'll put mint lotion, and then I'm wiggling them. And so the thought of like dealing with that, all the time, like you're doing, to the point, or like you've had to do, and then to the point of not being able to walk and being in hospital, that just sounds really awful.
Yeah. And it's so hard because it's like, I never know. And this is, just chronic illness in general. I never know how I'm going to feel when I wake up. So it's like, even if I didn't really do much the day before, I could wake up and still have trouble walking, or, it's also, I don't have it as much in my hands, but I do have a little bit of neuropathy. So it's like, sometimes in the morning, I can't, like, I have the easy open prescription bottles, like the ones that pop off. I still can't even open those. So it's like, using my hands or being able to use my legs, and I never know. It's like I could feel totally fine and then wake up and, just be in so much pain that I can barely like function or move.
Right.
And
that
exhausting.
explains further why you were saying, like, when you were doing all those dishes yesterday and your legs were kind of shaking, now I have a deeper understanding of what that means. It's not just a fatigue kind of like legs trembling, so tired. It's like, you need to make sure you're not going into a flare.
Exactly. And it's like, I want to help out and I want to, get all the chores done and vacuum the house and all that kind of stuff. But if I never know what's going to set me off, and I never know what's going to, get me into that spot where I'm like so dysfunctional that I can't do anything.
God.
So do you have kind of a process of kind of things that you check off in your head of like, okay, I could probably do this, but I shouldn't do that? So I know it can be really hard for people with chronic illness or just in general to know what could be that thing that tips you over. So do you have any advice for anyone to be like, well, I know that I can do this much, but then sometimes you just have to decide that this other thing might not be worth it. And so you just don't do it just to be safe.
Yeah, I try to do, like, I focus on what has to get done. So it's like I have a cat, and like obviously his litter needs to get done. So that's like a priority, and then like I need to be able to, I do a lot of like convenience foods, because like standing at the stove or, like preparing stuff is really difficult for me. And like, obviously when you're like moving around, you can't really just like sit in one spot and do it. So it's like, I have to make sure I feed myself, and so it's like, I look at the essentials. And then if I feel like I have some extra spoons, a little extra energy, I'll, try to, dust or vacuum or, whatever it is. But it's difficult just because, I could one day be doing a ton and be okay. And then the next day just,
can't do
only be able
anything.
to do kind of one thing. So for me, it's really like taking care of myself. Like with the fibromyalgia, my skin is so sensitive. So like even like touch will just sometimes set me off. So it's really like taking a break, putting the heating pad on, resting, drinking lots of water, making sure that, I'm taking care of me when I need to, and taking like breaks and not, working the entire day and not, going crazy. So it's a lot of like preparation, like kind of thinking ahead, like making sure that I have like my lotions or my, the heating pad to take care of myself. Cause like, last night sorry, I was just going to say, like, last night I got home and I literally, like, I was starving and I could not even like go into the kitchen because I was so tired.
Oh my gosh, I've so been there, where I've like walked in and I'm just like, nope, I would rather just feel nauseous all night out of starvation, because I literally can't even make it right now to eat. Yeah. And oh my gosh, I've totally been there. And so with your fibromyalgia and knowing that standing, like you said, like at the stove can be really challenging, what is showering like for you, or baths?
So showering is awful. I actually, when I listened to your episode about like cold showers, I've been trying them. I just love my hot showers because the heat really does help my joints, and it, it helps the pain, but it takes so much out of me. So standing is so much.
Yes, that is exactly it. Like the hot showers feel great to me, but I get out and I'm going to like faint. Like literally, I just will be in my towel on my bed, just like trying to get my body temperature to literally chill out.
Yes, I have to sit down. Yeah. I can't like get ready right away. It's like I'm sitting on my bed just like, okay, you could do it. You could do it.
Have you tried, Jackie, like taking a warm shower for most of your shower and then like the last 30 seconds having it be colder?
That's
or does
how
that
I
like
do it.
That's what I've been trying to do since I listened to your podcast. I was like, all right, I could try this.
I just don't know if like I didn't know if the cold at the end would like make your joints kind of tighten back up and bring that pain back that the hot water took away, but then maybe would help regulate your body temperature and make it feel a little bit better when you got out. Because I like hot showers too, and I don't have to deal with the pain.
That's what I noticed. And with the research about it was, because it also mentioned like because I don't think I could go hot, cold, like some cold shower people recommend. I think I would pass out with the temperature changes like that, because I'm kind of like intolerant to that. But what I was reading too is that if you go cold at the end, and then even if you were to turn it off and let your body air dry for a moment before getting out, that is supposed to help your body to re-regulate its own temperature. And when I was like understanding it that way, then I was like, well, no wonder I feel like I want to pass out after a hot shower, because I just have made my body very hot and it doesn't know how to re-regulate back to cool. And so at least in my mind, when I looked at it that way, I was like, well, that makes more sense, because I lotion like my whole body after a shower, every shower, and I wouldn't even be able to do that, because it
takes so much effort for me. And like I it's not like the best for your skin, and especially when my skin's dry from the Sjogren's, but like the in shower lotion, like I have to use those sometimes because like getting out of the shower and then lotioning your whole body is like, it just takes so much out of me. And you just reminded me. So my neuropathy the last like 2 months has like really ramped up and been really bad. And so been trying to, make med adjustments, but I basically had this thing where I get in the shower and when I come out, it feels like I'm walking on hot coals, and it is like literally the most painful. And it's just like, I don't know if it's the water or, the way the neuropathy is working. But it's been brutal.
That's awful. And so I also want to ask two things, one to the feet thing, and then the other thing is, do you find that the water pressure from like your shower head, does that make a difference on your skin?
I haven't noticed. No, if I ever use a different shower, it doesn't seem to.
Because I have read about that, particularly with people with fibromyalgia. It's like, it can feel like needles if the water pressure is not good. And so just before my surgery, I changed my shower head in the shower. I was just able to screw on and off. And I put one on that has an arm, a shower head arm thing, so that I can like wash my butt because my shower's really small too. So I can't like put a foot up. There's nothing like that. It's just a very small shower. But what I noticed, because my feet, especially with hot showers, would turn like purple and be really painful. I have poor blood circulation, and at least in my mind, I think it's because I have such shit circulation that then with the hot water, all of a sudden all the blood is rushing to it, and that's uncomfortable. Yeah. So I would take the shower arm off and turn it to just the arm and put that cold on my feet, and then put the shower head back on. That's a great idea. Yeah. And then I would do like my 30 seconds of progressively getting colder. I don't necessarily go like hot, cold 30 seconds. It's like I just go colder, colder, colder. But I would take the arm off and put it on my feet. And so maybe that might be helpful. Or if you're in a bathtub shower, maybe you could just turn the faucet for your feet, the bathtub faucet or something.
Yeah, I'll have to try that. That's a great idea.
And if anyone listening wants to try it and let us know, we'd appreciate it.
Or if you have those same symptoms, message us so we can tell Jackie what to try.
Yes, yes, or message Jackie directly, because towards the end of the episode, into the show notes, we'll make sure you know how to get in touch with Jackie.
Yeah.
Yay.
But that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that about the showers, because showering, and then like washing your hair, drying your hair, like what the fuck,
Oh, I don't. I do my bangs and then I do like, this, whatever, however it dries. I'm like, okay. Just like it, like trying to use a blow dryer, that arm motion holding the like above my head is so painful.
I bought a one of those special hair microfiber towel things, like a turban thing that you wrap up and it's supposed to dry your hair more. Because if I let my hair air dry like yours right now, I will feel like I'm hypothermic and freeze to death if my like neck gets all wet in my shirt and stuff. God, it's such like it's so challenging. So yeah, I do that microfiber towel for a while. I've only had that for a few weeks, but it's really helpful. And then I'll just like twist my hair and put it in a clip at the back and let it dry that way. And then it usually looks kind of like a air, I don't know, like a, what is
a wave, beachy
yeah,
wave.
Thank you. Beachy wave. That's what I was trying to, the word I was trying to come up with.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey everyone, I know you're all cozy listening to our episode, but I wanted to take a moment to let you know how you can become even more cozy with some Spoonie merch. All right, so we got a merch store. Hopefully you've looked at it. If you haven't, that's okay. That's why I'm telling you about it now. We got some cool stuff on there. There's sweatshirts, there's long sleeve shirts, there's t-shirts, there's tank tops, there's stuff that just says the real life Joe living with a chronic illness, so you can rep our podcast. But there's also stuff on there to just celebrate the Spoonie life you are living. We've got comfy stuff with, this is my all out of spoons outfit. So when you're not feeling your best, you can get all comfy cozy with a shirt that tells the world that you ain't feeling great and leave you alone, if that's your thing. We've also got stuff to help inspire you. I have a long sleeve shirt from our merch store that says dream, be happy, seek fulfillment, live your best life. And every time I put on that long sleeve shirt, I just feel so inspired and ready to take on the world. And it just reminds me that there's great stuff happening. So if you are interested in getting some Spoonie merch of your own, you can either head over to our website, therealspooniesunite.com, or the easiest thing is honestly just to swipe up or swipe down or whatever direction you need to get to the show notes, because the link will be there. Now back to the show.
Jackie, you mentioned that you really haven't had a big flare in 2020. Now, I know it wasn't the easiest year for you, but you didn't have like a hospitalization, right?
Yeah. Not related. I had an allergic reaction that I was hospitalized for, but not related to like, not being able to walk and that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So, not good that you still were in the hospital for some reason, but I mean, I guess silver lining is at least it was
exactly
not for the reasons it had been in the past. So one thing that I know kind of changed in your life this year was you started working for yourself. Do you think that that had anything to do with the fact that you didn't go into such a big flare?
Ooh, good question.
Or do you think it maybe was that COVID was going on for almost the entirety of 2020 and there was just kind of less to do? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I had like 2019 was kind of like the worst year of my life. I had like my fiance took off, I got laid off from the job that I was at for 6 years. My aunt passed away. So it was just like a series of everything. And so that was really just like, horrible stuff. And when I went into 2020, I kind of felt like, as horrible as it all was, it was kind of like this dead weight. It was kind of not my aunt, obviously, but, it was just gone. So I spent like a portion of it looking for a job, and then I found a job. And then unfortunately, because of COVID, I was laid off from that as well. So I spent a majority of the time, like, I was looking for jobs, I was actively interviewing, all that, but I was home and I was able to rest. And I didn't have to leave the house and go to work. And I didn't have to get up and get ready in the morning and sit at a desk and be uncomfortable. And it was like, if I didn't feel well, I could just go lay in bed. So I think that was a huge factor. And then, so when I was laid off from the second job, I was looking at corporate jobs. I was interviewing, I've been in corporate my whole life. And I've been in marketing for over 6 years now. And I really feel like I found kind of my passion and what I want to do. But when I was searching for jobs, I was kind of like, do I really want to go back to a corporate environment? Because the job that I was at for 6 years, I was really fortunate. My boss actually has MS. And so she was very understanding. So she would, if I was like, I really need to just go work from home today, she'd be like, absolutely, go ahead. But that was just her, it wasn't the rest of the company. So there was always that overarching fear of, is somebody going to say something? Is somebody going to think I'm not working? All this stuff. And then I would push myself. So I would, there were days that I was like limping around the office and I was totally embarrassed and, which, I shouldn't be embarrassed by it, but it is, when everyone's kind of staring at you and being like, what is wrong with her? But it was like, I felt like I had to be there. So I would just continue pushing myself. So I do think that is a huge reason as to why I had so many flare-ups that were so serious, because I was constantly trying to push myself in the corporate world, and, I can do this, I can work crazy hours, and, sit in this office chair, even though it's uncomfortable, and, not take, I'm very bad at taking breaks. So it was like, not take breaks and, just push through the work. And, so when I got towards the end of, 2020 interview process, I did get a job offer, and I was, really strongly considering it. It seemed like a great fit. But I was like, do I want this? Am I going to be happy? Because I had this constant fear and anxiety of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired, because, even though legally they can't fire you for medical reasons, there's, workarounds and things that they can find. And
they could say, well, you're just not working. Like, you're not,
it's not a good fit.
Yeah. It's not a good fit. You're not providing the quality of work that we desire, that we expect, even though.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it was like, I was panicked, like, at both places, even the place that I was hired, early in 2020, even my boss was like great and so supportive, but I was panicked. And I was like, do I want that constant fear and anxiety the whole time? Like, I don't think so. And so I had someone reach out to me for just marketing assistance, and just on like a freelance basis. And then once I had, that client, I started thinking, maybe I could go into freelance. Maybe I could work for myself. But then, of course, that was like a whole another terrifying conversation of like, oh my gosh, can I do this? What if I don't get clients? What if nobody wants to hire me? What if I don't make enough money to pay my bills? And so when I had this other job offer, it was, a back and forth. It was am I going back to corporate? Am I, but I did really assess the year, and I was like, okay, being home, like having a bad day and being able to work from my bed, like all of those things were just so important to me. And I felt so much better. I felt like, I was still obviously have pain and issues, and, but like my flare-ups were minor. It was like, here, have a prescription of prednisone, stay home, don't go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I decided, I was like, all right, I did a whole budget. I was like, this is the minimum I have to make. Like, I have to live really frugally right now until I, get more clients. And I have been really fortunate. My business has been open since October, I think. And I have right now like a full docket of clients, knock on wood. So it's
fun. It makes me like so happy.
Thank you. So it's scary, but it's also, it's so nice to be able to like take breaks. Like, I always get really tired between like 2 and 4. So I'll just go and like lay down for half an hour. And it just helps so much to be able to like set my own schedule. And then like another thing was with doctor's appointments, I have so many that it's like always asking for time off of work. And it's like, oh, I need to like be 2 hours late, or like, cause there's only so many appointments that are before work or after when you work, 8 to 5. And so I can go to a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day. I just make sure I don't have any meetings. I go in the middle of the day and I don't have to worry about it. So it's been so much less stress. Like, there's obviously stressors of like, can I keep these clients, those types of things. But in terms of my health, it's made such a huge difference.
Gosh, that's awesome. It makes me feel so happy.
Yes. And I know I was really happy for you when you started your own business, because I know like you kind of mentioned it to me and Cassie when we first started chatting, and we were like, you should do it. And so
you guys like started it all because you were like looking for help, and then you hired me on, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like, and so you guys definitely started it all for me. So thank you.
Yeah. And Chelsea and I just want to have like a giant Spoonie empire where we employ all the Spoonies who can all work flexibly from home and provide all the health benefits. These are our big long-term goals.
Yes. And so for everyone listening, like if you buy our merchandise, if you buy our stuff on Amazon, if you buy our workbook, if you buy stuff through our Amazon links, if you're a member of the Spoonie Hub, like all of those things, that money goes towards being able to pay people like Jackie to help.
Yeah.
And it makes us happy. And I one of the things I really hope that COVID brings out of society is that workplaces realize that work can be more flexible than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
Because, and maybe it's because like I'm healthy. I've never worked a true 9-to-5 job. I never have, because my job in college and in grad school was fitness. So there were days that I was there at 5 or 6 a.m. But I was done at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Or there was days I was there until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but I didn't have to come in until noon. And there's been very, very few times in my life where I've been like, oh, you have to show up at 8 and you have to stay here until 5. And I love it. Like, I love, like, yesterday, we're recording this on a Sunday, and yesterday was Saturday, and I loved, because I felt like it, I worked a good chunk of the afternoon because I wanted to. And I didn't work very much on like Wednesday or Thursday the week before because I didn't want to. And I still got everything that I needed to. And so I hope that more businesses are like, okay, yeah, if I hire trustworthy people, they're going to get everything done at the quality that I need to. And I've heard of more businesses also like gifting an extra week of vacation, just to give people a break on top of whatever their like 2 weeks of vacation is a year, if you're lucky. And I think that that's important because people, like, you can't work 80-hour weeks all the time. I mean, if you can, good for you, but like, it's probably not the healthiest thing out there.
Plus, it's like, speaking of which, like you were talking about with that vacation, so one of my physical therapists is also a Spoonie. She has Hashimoto's, and she's a PT. And with COVID happening, like at first, you know, they paid her out all of her like sick time and vacation time and everything when they had closed for lockdown. And she was like, I would have rather just not gotten paid. And she's like, because now I have no backup to take off like when I need to for the rest of the year.
So I have a beef with that, because if you are forcing someone to take vacation, that shouldn't be taken out of their vacation.
I know. When she was telling me about this, I was just like, what the fuck? You know, we were both like,
but this is also why I don't work for other people when I work for myself.
But it is true. And being like, when you do have, you can set your deadlines. And that is one of the things about freelancing or working for yourself is the flexibility. Like, just like Chelsea said, she didn't feel like working, so she didn't. I had a shit week. So I ended up not doing anything productive on like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I dropped the ball on thing. I was just trying to quite literally like get through the day without completely falling to pieces emotionally and then physically as well. And yeah, totally. And then yesterday, Chelsea and I recorded an episode, and then we ended up chatting about work stuff for like an hour and a half. And I was like, I gotta go like lay down for a little bit and this and that. And so same thing. I got off, I laid in bed, I did a little bit of computer work. And then I was like, my brain feels good. And then I sat and I was like working until 8 o'clock at night. I got so much stuff done. I was listening to music. And then today I felt just this giant like weight lifted that going into my surgery tomorrow, I was able to do stuff. If I was working in a regular job, that Saturday evening work would have not been able to happen. It would all just be such a ball of stress. And so although we are advocating for freedom in your job and flexibility, you don't necessarily quit your job right now and just like do something the next day.
No.
Yeah, you need some planning, everybody. Yeah, plan.
And not everyone is cut out for working for themselves. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Running your own business takes its own form of inner strength and resiliency. Like Jackie, you mentioned having this fear of, well, what happens if my clients run away, if they just disappear? Because that is a fear that you have to work through in order to keep going. And just, there's some people that are not meant to work for themselves, and that is okay.
100%.
That's why you can go work for other people that hopefully are understanding. And that's where I hope that kind of more of a shift happens in the world. And I think also the more everyone advocates for themselves, the more that you push back on, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do this. Setting boundaries and just realizing that you have a certain level of control over the amount that you work and how you're treated, then I think more employers, because there's a ton of people out there with chronic conditions that have to deal with stuff like this all the time.
I'm glad you brought that up again, because I was going to say that, there are so many people with chronic illness, and that they have asked, for reasonable accommodations, such as, can I, like, can I work from home 3 days a week, or can I, go to a doctor's appointment and not have to worry about, this chaos. And, it just simple, it wasn't like, give me, 7 weeks off, or like, I'm not going to work. It was like, it's very simple, reasonable accommodations. And a lot of people in the chronic illness community are frustrated right now because they were told no, no, no. And then COVID happened, and literally overnight, every single person was okay to work from home.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, why couldn't the reasonable accommodations happen earlier for people who need them, when clearly people are getting their work done and businesses are still operating? So I really hope that, like you said, it does make a difference, and that when people start going back to the office, if they do, then those that need the accommodations aren't going to be like looked down upon. Because I felt like if I needed something at certain jobs, it was like, absolutely not. What are you talking about? You need to leave an hour early? No. I'm like, okay.
Well, and the additional part of that too, that I'm hoping for, is they are talking a lot more about long-term effects of COVID and how people may experience long-term COVID fatigue effects.
Which is basically chronic fatigue syndrome.
Right. And so my hope too is, obviously I'm not like happy about all these people who may have long-term effects, but I hope that people overall, because it has been a global awareness, might be more open-minded to the fact that people have things, like everybody has something. I mean, I remember having another fitness professional, a Pilates instructor, who was kind of like, they really only like working with like really fit people. They're like, I just really don't know what to do with this person. They have a back thing. And I was just like, okay, first of all, why are you a Pilates instructor? Secondly,
I'm like, you're perfectly healthy. I don't want to work with you. Oh, you have 50 million issues? Hi, you're going to be my best friend.
But I just looked at her, and I just looked at her and straight up said, it is more rare to find someone who has no ailment than it is to have someone who like has something. I mean, my brother's girlfriend is like in phenomenal shape. She plays soccer. They go mountain biking, snowboarding, all the things, running, biking, everything. But she gets lower back stuff, mostly because she does sit at her desk. She's a chemical engineer, and she has told me that she has horrible desk posture. She says that her computer screen is really far away, and she leans forward on the computer all day long. And I'm like, well, that's why your back is fucked up, But it's like, again, perfect example of a completely healthy quotes person, athletic, in shape. They still have, a back issue. And so anyways, I just hope that, with COVID,
Everyone's got something.
Everyone's got something, but
or even like mental illness, you never know who's
Exactly.
struggling with mental illness, and that takes a huge toll, and with chronic illness, obviously that's like another huge part of it, is like the mental aspect. But you never know, like somebody could be perfectly in shape, perfectly seemingly happy, and have a horrible home life. And like, there just needs to be more understanding, because I just hate this like American culture of like, you're not working unless you work 80 hours a week. Whereas like in other countries, they give so much vacation time. They, understand that there needs to be breaks during the day. And, it's just, it's not a healthy culture that we have here.
I know, like the European work culture, I prefer much more, because and with you saying like people having more understanding, I think something I've really noticed and seen first-handedly with working with Chelsea in this partnership has been, people just need to like believe other people. There's all this like, doubting and blaming. Like if someone's like, I have a migraine, it's like, do you have a migraine, or do you just have a little headache? Are you just kind of like a pussy about it? A wimp?
Are you exaggerating?
Yeah. And it's like, exactly, you're exaggerating, like pull it together. And then, but if I were ever, when I started saying to Chelsea, oh, I've got a really bad headache, or, oh, I've got a migraine, she's like, oh man, that sucks. And I started being like, she just believes me,
It's
why would
just
you
like the
lie?
validation.
The validation. And so that was something I really started noticing, that I was hoping for like humanity as a whole, is when someone shares what their experience is, like don't judge it or doubt it or question it. Just acknowledge that that's their experience. That's it. you know?
I mean, I've had that happen. My worst hospital experience, I had that happen. I had nurses who were outside my door. You know how they do like the shift handoff or whatever? They're supposed to do it by your bedside. They did it outside my door. My door was like partially open. And one of the nurses was like, she's just faking it. And that was when I ended up going to rehab because I couldn't walk. I'm like, yeah, I'm faking
Why?
it. I want to spend 2.5 weeks in the hospital. Like, absolutely not. Like, being in rehab was horrific. I could not get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. I had to like, you know, they would give me like something to hold and I would drop it immediately. I'd try to walk, I'd fall over. Like, why would I fake that? You know, and why would I not want to be in my bed with my cat at home? Like, come on.
Nurse Ratchet.
So that was like,
I don't
seriously.
Yeah. It like makes me really upset because I just don't understand why people would just think that you'd lie about it. And one thing that I know, I have been guilty of this in the past, of where like someone's home with the flu and then you see them like the first time that they're back to work or wherever they're going. And you're like, you look totally fine. You cannot tell me that you were like deathly ill 24 hours ago. But then I think of myself where I have felt deathly ill from whatever. And I go out into the world and there's this thing called makeup, especially for us ladies that decide to put on makeup. I know I can, if I put on a little bit of mascara, all of a sudden I look like a real human being. Even if on the inside, I'm like, I want to curl up into a ball and die. And that goes for everyone else out there, that you can look totally fine on the outside, whether you're just recovering from the flu or the cold or a cold, or you've had allergies, or if you have a really bad headache. Most of those things do not show on the outside. And I think unless you really, really know someone and you know their body language, or you know like the looks on their faces, it's very, very hard to tell if someone actually feels like crap. I know I'm very good at hiding it because like I'm used to working with clients and I don't want my clients to know if I'm having a pounding headache, because it's that hour is for them. And so I know how to hide it. So that goes for everyone out there, especially if you're just trying to go through your life and you're dealing with a high level of pain every single day. And it just makes me angry when people are like, I don't believe
we need more people like you though, who actually understand, because it's invisible illness. And it's like, you know, Cassie and I could look totally fine, but then like, you know, Cassie, you'll text me and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain, I can't move. And it's like, you'd never know.
Well, Cassie, you're really good about sharing when you're having shitty days on our Instagram. Some of you listening may have seen some of the stories that Cassie posts. In the picture, you look just like you do with me looking across this video chat. But I know on the inside, you're like, fuck.
Well, yeah. And then it's like, and sometimes, you know, sometimes also it's like things will be so bad that like you can't, like this week emotionally I had just reached my limit. So I was like very inactive on social media, and in my response to most people about anything, I was just like, I needed to just shut off, you know, and recoup basically emotionally. But yeah, and also on the additional side of what you were sharing, Chelsea, with like, you know, you can hide it and you can choose to do that. You also may never know how you're going to feel, just like you were saying, Jackie, because it was just like a week ago that I was or 2 weeks ago that I was at lunch with a friend outside people, COVID. And I was fine. I was feeling good. I was excited. And then it was like 8 hours later, I was throwing up on my bathroom floor, thinking I was going to faint, thought I had a fever, thought I had COVID, and and I crawled into my room to like get my water and crawled back, and it was awful. And then the next day I was like, okay, I kind of feel okay. I'm going to go to Trader Joe's, you know? And so it's like, you also don't know the turn you could take from the morning to night. And sometimes you do, look fine. Like you said, Chelsea, I mean, you know, I'm going to tomorrow when I have another surgery on my butt, I'm going to pretty much look like I do right now, you know?
Yeah. And like with you, like sharing on, you know, your Instagram of like, which I know you know, your Instagram is like specifically for chronic illness. And I kind of made that decision too, because it was like, I want people to know, I want to raise awareness. But then I had that fear of like, people are going to just think I'm complaining. People aren't going to believe me. People are, and I don't know if like you feel that way when you post too, sometimes it's like, people are going to be like, oh my gosh. But then I just thought about it, and it's like, cause I've gotten messages before that's like, thank you so much for sharing. I thought I was alone in this, or like, this is, you know, so good to know, blah, blah, you know, and it's like, just knowing if I'm helping one person, like helping them feel less alone, like that's enough for me to share. So it's like, fuck anyone else who's like, she's just complaining. She's, you know, she's overreacting. It's like, okay, if you lived with what I lived with though, and felt this stuff, like not trying to be like pity party, but it's just like, you would feel shitty too. And you'd, like, you'd want to talk about it.
Exactly. And like, sometimes you just have to speak the truth. I totally know what you mean. And I'm still guilty of worrying about that. Like my own personal Instagram, I'm actually pretty inactive on there in general. I more like scroll and follow other people that I like to view, but I haven't posted on there hardly at all. And part of it was because I was just like, you know, I was social media connected with people on there that I wanted to be in touch with in my life, but that I didn't feel safe being my most vulnerable, open self. And I started feeling like, well, I don't really want to share how I wanted to share how I was feeling, but I didn't with those people kind of. I rather, for my own emotional protection, liked to just keep that wall up. And so when Chelsea and I started ours, it actually was a huge sense of freedom. Like, you know what, if people want to follow this part of my journey, they can follow this part. And I started getting to totally be myself. And I also was amazed with that feedback, which was encouraging for me. Like you said, people would message and be like, oh my gosh, me too. Like I posted an Instagram story of like being on the toilet and having my elbows like on my knees.
I remember
and I'm
this post.
Yeah. And I'm like, does anybody else have their legs go completely numb because you're fucking sitting here forever? Like this sucks. And the amount of responses we got from that like Instagram story of like, oh my God, I thought it was just me. And
a
I
lot
was
of people were like, I'm looking at this while sitting on the toilet doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. And so it's like
that's the stuff that needs to be talked about. It shouldn't be taboo, because it's, you know, like, you have like issues with your stomach and going to the bathroom. Like, who fucking cares? Like, share, talk about it.
Yeah, just get it out there. We all have to do it. And I mean, I still even like it's a practice. And so for those listening, it's like, you know, on one hand, I feel more and more comfortable to be open and share, and it's encouraging to do so. And it feels healing for me. And on the other side, like there's still insecurities. Like I have a tube in my butthole. I'm going to have a second tube put in tomorrow. And like I was talking to my sister-in-law, and I was just like, I'm so glad that I'm single right now. And like, it's COVID and I'm not dating and I'm not like sleeping with anybody, because I would feel so nervous. I think I would have this whole other layer of like insecurity if I was having to worry about those things. And then I even caught myself thinking, no, this is just a body. Everything's fine. If someone else had that, I wouldn't give a shit about it. So why am I insecure? But it's a process. And it's a constant like choice every day, and practicing, I don't know, to feel good in your body. And you don't have to like love every moment.
Yes. And I kind of want to piggyback off of that with a challenge for our listeners. Because Jackie and Cassie, I think this is something that you both are already kind of doing, but questioning why you're having those thoughts of, oh, I don't want to ask for this time off, or I'm having a hard time asking for this doctor's appointment time, or sharing stuff about your symptoms or your illness with people around you. Ask yourself why you're feeling that. And then if those reasons why are good reasons for you in the long term, because there's nothing wrong with just not sharing part of your life with people if that protects you. Like Cassie, you were saying, there's just some things you're just not comfortable sharing to protect yourself with certain people, which is fine. You have every right to do that. But if you're like not wanting to set certain boundaries or share part of yourself with other people, if that's hurting you, is it really worth it? And so I guess my challenge for listeners, because like I said, I think both of you do a good job with this already, is figuring out what's best for you and going for it, making sure it happens. Like Jackie, you were talking about how the security of a corporate job can be kind of nice on one hand, but then at the same time, it's also, there's so much stress that goes with it. Is it worth it? And then deciding what worked best for you, that's what you went with. I think
definitely.
There's too many times that in our world in general, we do things solely for other people or to keep other people feeling comfortable, which sometimes hurts ourselves more. So that's my little challenge.
I like that.
It was a lot of
had that pop into my head, and I think the more like this podcast is about raising awareness and sharing stories, but I also think that the more like we're just one podcast. So the more that everyone listening, everyone out there, you share your stories in whatever way feels comfortable for you, and you ask for whatever it is you need, then more people are going to have to start paying attention, and maybe it'll become more of the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like with like the corporate, I stayed in it for so long because that's what the normal thing to do was, it's like doing freelance is like very scary. And it's very much like, I had people who were like, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to succeed. And it's like,
but here you are.
Well, so far. Yeah. And then like also health insurance is a huge, like when you have a corporate job, like you have that security of like health insurance and, stable time off and, but then I looked at it, like I was at my job for 6 years and then they did layoffs and it's like, so nothing really is secure. Like there's nothing in life that's secure. So.
Yeah. I just started this book. I just told Chelsea about it yesterday. What is it called? Boosting Your Self-Worth to Grow Your Net Worth by Nancy Levin. It's something like that.
I can find it.
Yeah. I just told Chelsea about it. She has to buy it. You should get it too, Jackie. Cause I'm already like, oh my God.
Where'd it go? I have it saved on my Goodreads.
Okay. It's something like boosting your self-worth to grow your net worth.
I think if someone looked that up, they'd be able to find it.
Nancy Levin is the author. I know that because I looked at her website last night to do the meditation that I was supposed to do. And anyway, one thing in here, which I feel like is appropriate to share for the podcast and something that for me was like mind blowing today. So I did this meditation last night that it told us to do. And this book is like, it's amazing. It's really about your self-worth and where did these beliefs come from and et cetera. And especially with you talking about a corporate job, one thing that I like uncovered in the last couple of days, which like I said, has been mind blowing and I can't stop thinking about it. So I too, over 2020 and working from home, this has been my big realization also of like, I really want to work from home as my main source of income. I also, for the first time, got to do that and realized how much better I feel overall in my day, how much better quality my sleep is, and just, I would say overall, how much happier I am, like with it being actually a pretty challenging year in a lot of ways. And my health has not been the worst, but it's probably the second worst year health-wise for me ever. And yet I still in a lot of ways am the happiest I've been. So I too am trying to structure my life moving forward into making more income from home. Some of it is like, anyway, there's all these different paths. But in this workbook, as it's like unearthing your money beliefs, it was asking about some of your childhood stuff. And I realized in there that I had a ton of chores growing up. My brother and I both like have horrible memories of our chores. We hated all of them. We definitely felt like it was like unfair and too much work. We weren't living on a farm. It wasn't a farm life, but yet it felt that way. And we were both resentful about it. We hated it. We never enjoyed any of it. We were miserable the whole time. We would have our headphones on listening to Linkin Park and be like, fuck the chores, and that was like the experience. And then we would get our allowance. And, I realized in these last 24 hours of this book that I was like, oh my God, I completely associated with the only way I can make money is doing work I hate. And I had this moment of like, oh my God, like that is part of that root belief of that fear of like, can I, provide for myself working from home? Can I make enough to pay for health insurance, medical treatments, provide a life for me and my son? Doing essentially freelancing, working from home stuff, or maybe teaching Pilates online. Is that going to be gone when COVID is over? Because I've loved it so much. All this stuff, all these fears that it's all going to be taken away. And then this weekend I was like, oh my God, but so much of that is just because I think that I've had this unconscious belief that one can only make money doing work they don't like doing. And so some of that structured belief that a lot of us had you know, you can only make money or be secure if you have a corporate job working a 9 to 5, or you need to like kind of like the old American dream, like 9 to 5 job, own a house, get furniture for your wedding, and then that furniture you'll have forever. You know, you're set up for life. It's like things are changing, and hopefully this year is going to be a catalyst of change for the chronic illness community, the working from home, freelancing. A lot of that stuff is becoming a little bit more known and talked about, and I would even say maybe respected, because I don't know, I think you're about our age, Jackie, I think. And so like, I feel like our age was kind of that tip of where like internet jobs, you're like, but are they real? Is it a real job? Yeah.
Yes. For anyone wondering, we all three of us on this podcast have made money on the internet.
Yeah. So it obviously works. Yeah. And like you were saying, Chelsea, you've never done a 9 to 5 job. I haven't either. I worked at a coffee shop before I was in the fitness industry. So I was up at 4 a.m. I was home at noon or 1 p.m. You know, yeah. Oh my God, it sucks, dude. Fuck that. And so I also had a different job, but I definitely in my mind had this thought of like, I will only be able to make money outside of the home. I'm going to have to go to work in order to make money. And I think the generation after kind of like our age, they are growing up where it's more like, actually anyone can make money. And that's probably got to be even a little bit more stressful for that generation, because it's like, what's your niche going to be? How are you going to make money? Be creative like everybody else who's doing it and living their dreams. That's probably got to be a little bit scary. But at the same time, I don't think people in the next generation have as much judgment about like internet incomes, essentially. Because like what you're doing freelance marketing and virtual assistant work type stuff online is completely respected. I mean, you hop on Upwork and there's people doing it everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know I just went on a tangent, but like I said, it was like, this was a really profound moment for me of like, oh my God, this is why I've always thought I'm only going to make money doing jobs I hate. And that's why I've stuck with so many jobs, especially side gigs where I was making money and I fucking hated it. And I was just like, yeah, well, this is the only way I'm going to make money. I got to keep doing it. Suck it up. You know, you got to do things you don't want to do. Whereas now I'm like, maybe now that I'm conscious of it, I can change it. Chelsea, you keep playing with your hair, but you're making me play with this tiny piece of hair that's like nothing.
Y'all, I always play with my hair.
But
it gets really
when I'm too, but it's like crunchy today. So
I'm anxious, you can tell because I'm like super playing with it. But so for everyone listening, I have very, very curly natural hair. And so I like to find a single curl and I just play with that one curl because it just feels really nice running through my fingers. And my hair is straight right now. And so when it's straight, I'm like, oh my God, I can actually run my fingers through it all the way.
Oh yeah.
And it's just satisfying. I'm sure there's like some psychologists out there that would be like, oh yeah, it's a self-soothing thing. I'd be like, no shit, really?
Yeah.
I know.
It's definitely
but it's also just like, it's like petting something soft, which is funny because I'm wearing a very fuzzy sweatshirt and I have a very fuzzy blanket on my lap. I just really like being cozy, and so playing with my hair is just one of those things. Like, this is just nice.
See, my hair's so up because I haven't
feel the same way.
Days. Yeah. I haven't showered for days.
Like soft hair. Oh, it feels so nice.
Yes. So it's also, I like to pet my dogs a lot. But there was one question I wanted to ask you, Jackie, before we wrap up, because you brought up healthcare, health insurance. I know this past year I turned 26 and I got booted off my parents' insurance, which was fun. And I do not have a corporate job or a job that offers benefits of the healthcare kind or any. I work for myself, which has lots of benefits, but that was one thing that I had to do, is get my own insurance. And I want to hear kind of maybe how your experience was like, because for me, I do not have any underlying conditions or pre-existing conditions. And so most insurance companies were like, oh, you're in your 20s and you're healthy. Your only medication is birth control. We'll insure you. But I vividly remember like going through the first company that I enrolled with, and like one of the questions they asked was like, do you have Crohn's disease? And I was like, Cassie. Because and there was lots of other things, but just because Cassie and I have such a close relationship, that was the one that really stuck out to me. But I'm sure there was questions about fibromyalgia or Sjogren's or just any other underlying conditions and pre-existing conditions. So what's been your experience finding health insurance?
Yeah, so that was like probably the biggest factor for me was, can I make enough to pay for it? Because it's not cheap to pay for, on your own. And so every state's different in terms of like what they offer. Like I know that like New York City has like a ton of different like private insurance plans you can pick from. New Hampshire, where I live, we don't really have a ton of options. So I went through the Affordable Care Act. And some of them are really cheap. Like some of them are, relatively cheap, like $150 like in a premium a month. But because I have so many, like they didn't actually ask me, do you have a pre-existing condition? But because I need so much coverage and I needed to basically look up all my specialists and make sure they were in the network and make sure that all of the major medications I take, which there are a lot of them, were covered, or at least like the generic version. It was a lot. And so I have to pick, I think it's probably the most expensive plan on there. And it also has, I had to look at the deductible and see what I had to pay out of pocket, which is astronomical. But it's better than, paying less a month and then having, a smaller, it's just, yeah. So it was a process for sure. And it was a big decision. And it's still going to be like, that was something I had to like put the money aside for that to make sure I can pay my deductible, because once I hit the deductible, they'll start paying a lot more. But like this past year, one of my medications was like $800 and my deductible was like $1,500. So it's like, it sucks to pay for like a 1 month supply for $800, but like I need to hit the deductible anyway. So
at least you hit it within 2 months.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So it's crazy how expensive it is. And then of course, like recently they were going to take away the Affordable Care Act, which meant like I was not going to have any options. And so that was really stressful too.
Yeah.
But I think, I think that's all set, but it's just, you do have to take into consideration like how many appointments, like the copays, the prescriptions, all that. So it was definitely a long process.
And it is expensive, and the premiums tend to be higher because you do need more coverage. And I totally relate because my medications are really expensive as well. And then like I got life insurance, and I originally was quoted, I think it was like $30 a month for a $500,000 policy is what I wanted a $500,000 policy on me. And it was, I think it was like 32 a month or something. And so they were like, this is your pre-approval, like, let's get going. And then when I had the phone interviews, and obviously you don't want to lie on your life insurance, because otherwise your people are not going to get their money. So I gave them, obviously my full health history, and they pulled those records. And then it ended up being double the premium for half the coverage. So then now I pay like $65 a month for like a $250,000 policy. And so it's just really interesting that because of Crohn's disease, and that's just the one diagnosis that they really had on there as like what they counted as fact, like they didn't really care about Lyme or whatever. And so anyways, just because of that though, it was double the premium for half of the coverage. And so,
which is stupid. And I feel like it's some form of discrimination, but
but that's the thing is like, you're more likely to die. So they're like, we're more likely to have to actually pay out this policy. So
I have to pay them for some people, unfortunately. That's why they're there.
Right. And so I was just like, well, I would rather pay even that extra amount to know that my son is going to be taken care of, because you just never know. No. But it is one of those things of just everything is more expensive, health insurance, copays, the amount of appointments, the medication, not to mention alternative medicine or supplements that really would make you feel good, but you can't afford to do because you're already paying so much, and you have to try and get as much covered as you can with your health insurance. Yep. And so it's a broken system. And I mean,
yeah, like massages really help me, but when I just, decided to go freelance, that's not an extra expense I can afford right now. So it's like, oh, I can't get one. I used to get them pretty frequently, and it just sucks that we can't use health funds towards those types of things, which I know you guys are working on with your nonprofit, which is amazing. But it's just, it's frustrating because alternative treatments really do help people that are chronically ill, or even people just with back pain or other ailments, or.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'm in the same boat too. There's lots of things that I know make me feel better that I don't do because it's just not quite in the budget right now. And I will go with something that's covered. Like I may have more physical therapy appointments because most of that appointment is covered with health insurance. And, so it's just, it's challenging. That was a good question to ask, Chelsea. And thank you for sharing so much of your personal experience, Jackie, with that.
And we are hoping and looking for kind of more of a health insurance expert to bring on the podcast at some point in time. And we also kind of want a financial expert because there is such a financial burden of how do you just manage some of those financial challenges. So if anyone listening knows some people that are really great with that stuff, send them our way, please.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to find people with certain areas of expertise. So yes, but this has been an amazing conversation, Jackie. Where can our listeners find you if they're wanting to connect with you personally, or if they're interested in your business services?
So my personal Instagram is at You Gotta Let Me Go, which will be, I'm sure you'll put that in the notes.
Yep.
It's GOTTA. And that's where I share a lot of my chronic illness journey. It's, my personal life too, but I update my stories a lot, and I talk about, my chronic conditions. And if anybody has any questions about anything that, or you have Sjogren's or anything, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody. And I always love meeting people in the community. And if you need marketing consulting services, I do social media, content creation, email marketing, virtual assistants,
Facebook ads,
marketing. Oh yes, Facebook ads. I am at Marketing Socially with JC.
Yay. Yep. And you should definitely go check Jackie out. Truly, she does a lot of our stuff for us.
I know. We just we love Jackie so much. It's just been such a blessing to have her on the team.
Yes. And so if you need a recommendation on Jackie's stuff, Cassie and I highly, highly recommend her. She saves our butt a lot. She runs our Facebook ads because Cassie and I both refuse to figure out how to work Facebook ads because
she's really good at being she's good at being on top of stuff because she'll be like, hey, do you guys have this? And then we're like, no.
She's more on top of things than we are for our own business. So yes, but Jackie, it's been so wonderful talking to you. We love chatting with you, and it's been nice to dive deeper into your story.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing kind of your insights about what it was like to work corporate versus working for yourself, and just kind of sharing parts of your life. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was so wonderful.
Yay.
Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast and want to show your support, please leave a review, share the podcast with others, or join us in the Spoonie Hub.
If you'd like to connect with Cassie and I, you can find us on Instagram at The Real Spoonies Unite, or on our website, mywellnesshub.co, where you can find all sorts of resources and you can find the Spoonie Hub. Talk to you soon.